Think about the best you've ever felt in a relationship. The texts at 2 a.m. The "I've never met anyone like you." The plans for the future, or the trips, the life together, all mapped out within weeks of meeting. Someone who made you feel like you were the most interesting, most extraordinary person they had ever encountered. Someone who treated you like you were the answer to everything they had ever been looking for. You remember how that felt, don't you? Now I'm going to ask you a question that nobody asked you at the time. What if that feeling, the overwhelming, breathless, this can't possibly be real feeling, was not love? What if it was a weapon, deliberately deployed, psychologically engineered, specifically designed to bypass your judgment, dismantle your defenses, and make you completely dependent on someone before you had any idea who they truly were? That is love bombing. And if you are watching this right now, there is a very high chance it has already happened to you. Part 1. What is love bombing? The term love bombing was not invented by a therapist or a relationship coach. It was first used by researchers studying cults in the 1970s. They noticed that cult leaders and their recruiters used a very specific tactic to pull new members in. They would overwhelm recruits with extraordinary affection, constant attention, flattery, a sense of belonging, of being chosen, of being finally deeply understood. So much, so fast, that the recruits' critical thinking was completely bypassed before they could engage it. By the time the manipulation began, the emotional bond was already so strong that leaving felt like amputation. Decades later, clinical psychologists began recognizing the exact same pattern playing out in intimate relationships, particularly those involving narcissists, people with dark triad personality traits, and emotional manipulators of every kind. Here is the definition I want you to memorize. Love bombing is the deliberate use of excessive affection, attention, flattery, and idealization in the early stages of a relationship for the purpose of creating emotional dependency. Not genuine connection, emotional dependency. I need you to sit with that distinction for a moment, because this is what makes love bombing so devastating. It is phenomenologically identical to falling in love. It feels like the universe finally sent you what you deserved. It feels like recognition, like this person sees you in a way that no one has ever seen you before. That feeling is completely real, but its source is not. Part 2. Why your brain cannot resist it to understand why love bombing works on intelligent, self-aware, emotionally healthy people, and it does every single time. You have to understand what it does to the brain. When someone showers you with intense romantic attention, your brain releases dopamine, a significant amount of dopamine. Dopamine is a neurotransmitter of anticipation and reward. It's the same chemical behind gambling addiction, social media scrolling, and drug highs. It does not make you feel loved. It makes you feel like something extraordinary is about to happen, and it makes you crave more of that feeling compulsively. But love bombing does not just trigger dopamine. It targets something far deeper. Most people carry what psychologists call an attachment wound, an unmet emotional need, often formed in childhood, for consistent love, unconditional approval, or the profound feeling of being truly seen and chosen. For many people, this wound is invisible. They don't know it's there. The love bomber, consciously or unconsciously, finds that wound with extraordinary precision and floods it. Suddenly, here is someone who thinks you are extraordinary, who prioritizes you above everything else in their life, who texts you good morning before you are awake and good night after you fall asleep, who looks at you like you personally ended their loneliness, who tells you with complete conviction that you are different from everyone else they have ever met. And that wound, that old, quiet, hungry part of you, drinks it in like water in a desert. This is not weakness. This is not stupidity. This is your nervous system responding to what feels like the resolution of a lifelong ache. There is a third mechanism at play, and this one is the most structurally dangerous of all. Love bombers layer in what psychologists call future faking, building an entire imagined future with you, rapidly. Trips you will take together, the house, the children, the life, all of it sketched out with conviction and detail within the first few weeks of knowing each other. Why? Because once you have emotionally invested in a future, your brain begins protecting that future. Your identity becomes attached to it. Leaving the person no longer just means losing them. It means losing the life you have already started to believe in. The future becomes the cage. Part 3. The 6 signs. So how do you tell the difference between someone who is genuinely, intensely falling for you and someone who is running a psychological operation on your emotions? Here are the 6 signs. Sign 1. Everything moves at an unnatural speed, not just emotionally, practically. Meeting their family within 2 weeks, moving in together discussions within the first month. The pace feels exhilarating, but underneath there is a quiet unease that you keep pushing down, dismissing as anxiety, as self-sabotage, as not being ready for something real. That unease is not anxiety. That unease is data. Healthy love builds, love bombing floods. Sign 2. The compliments feel almost perfectly calibrated. Not just "you're beautiful," it's "I have never met anyone with your combination of depth and intelligence." They seem to know exactly what you have always wanted to hear. That is not chemistry. Love bombers are expert observers. They identify your insecurities, your values, your quiet longings, and they reflect them back at you with precision. You feel seen. What is actually happening is that you are being profiled. Sign 3. Their attention is relentless and conditional. Constant texts, daily calls, a persistent need to know where you are, who you are with, when you will be back. This is consistently mistaken for passion, for devotion. But there is a possessive undertone you cannot quite name. They become cold or distant even when you need space. When you assert yourself, healthy partners respect your autonomy. A love bomber cannot tolerate anything that reduces access to you. Sign 4. Isolation begins very quietly. They never say, "Do not see your friends." What they do is make your time with others feel like a small betrayal. "I just miss you so much. I thought tonight was for us." Slowly, without noticing, you start organizing your life around their emotional needs. Your outside support network, the people who might eventually notice something is wrong, begins to quietly disappear. Sign 5. Something in you feels unsettled and you dismiss it. This is the most important sign of all. Your gut is not deceived by dopamine. There is a part of you that understands the difference between safety and intensity, that knows something is slightly off about a person who is this certain about you this fast. You dismiss it because the feeling is so good, because you do not want to be the person who destroys something real out of fear. They are counting on that dismissal. Sign 6. You feel addicted rather than simply attracted. There is a meaningful neurological difference between wanting to see someone and feeling as though you cannot function without them within the first 3 weeks of meeting. That level of emotional dependency, developing that fast, is not love. It is the early architecture of a trauma bond, and it was built on purpose. Part 4. The switch. Now let's talk about what happens next, because love bombing always ends. The idealization phase has a purpose. Its purpose is to manufacture maximum emotional dependency before the mask begins to come down. Once the love bomber feels that they have you, once you have rearranged your life around them, introduced them to your family, emotionally committed to a shared future. The intensity begins to withdraw, slowly at first, a shorter response, a canceled plan, a moment of unexpected coldness that makes no sense given the morning before. And you, because you have been conditioned by weeks of extraordinary warmth, assume that you have done something wrong. You go back through every conversation looking for the mistake. You begin managing yourself more carefully, choosing your words more deliberately. You start performing a version of yourself optimized for their approval. You are chasing back the version of them from the beginning. And here is the cruelest structural feature of love bombing's design. That version of them never existed. It was a performance, a mirror image of everything you needed, rendered back at you with precision. And now you are chasing a ghost, gradually dismantling your own identity in the process, and blaming yourself for losing something that was never real. Psychologists call this the idealized devalue cycle, and for many people, it repeats, weeks or months of withdrawal, then a return of the original warmth, then another withdrawal. Your nervous system becomes conditioned to the cycle, the way a laboratory animal becomes conditioned to intermittent reward. You will tolerate increasingly more to earn back the version of them from the beginning. That is not love. That is a behavioral conditioning loop running on your nervous system. If any of what I just described sounds familiar, if you are watching this and recognizing a relationship you have been in, or a relationship you are in right now, I need you to hear this clearly. Being love-bombed does not mean you were weak. It does not mean you were naive or desperate or that you should have known better. It means that someone deliberately targeted the most human part of you, your need to be loved, to be chosen, to matter to someone who sees you fully, and weaponized it. The most intelligent, most emotionally aware, most extraordinary people fall for love bombing because it is specifically engineered to bypass the part of the brain that makes rational judgments. You cannot think your way out of a dopamine flood while it is happening. What you can do is learn to recognize it, learn the speed, learn the intensity, learn to listen to the quiet unease your body was already trying to tell you before the chemical high made you dismiss it. Real love does not feel like a drug. Real love feels safe. Real love is slow enough that you can actually see the person before you are already dependent on them. In the next video in this series, we go deeper into what happens after the love bombing ends, into the devaluation phase, the discard, and why so many people remain trapped in the cycle long after they fully understand what is happening to them. If this video gave you language for something you have lived through, share it with someone who needs it. Subscribe to 10 Factory, because the most dangerous things that will ever be done to you will be done in the name of love. And what you do not understand about how the mind works, especially in the people who claim to love you, is exactly what is being used against you. I will see you in the next one.